the trail slowly, and I'll just stop briefly at each garden, and just give a tiny little bit of information. Questions can always come, yeah, much later. So I started this trail in 2002 when I was arrived here as a resident. Not in great shape because I had been dealing with my mom, who had been very ill and thought she was going to die, and then she kind of came through. But I had been in Belgium, staying up like nights and nights and nights in the hospital. And when I did fine, but when I got back to California, I crashed, and I just pretty much got a pretty major depression. So when my time around to come to my residency that I had been looking forward to for a long time, I felt like, what am I going to do? Should I go? Should I not go? So when I got here, my studio was where now the office is, and my studio pretty much remained empty for 2 weeks. And Ralph and others, I'm sure, thought, what the hell is she doing? She's not doing any work. I had been walking for 2 weeks. I walked all the, 500 acres? Something like that? 450, sorry. So I walked this side, I walked the other side of the river. And then finally one day, when I walked here, I started, trying to figure out what this was. There's a bump there, right? And I go like, this can't be normal, maybe not. So I kind of, then walked in further and found a little. Let's walk, because I may want to. And it still was some. It was a little more preserved, but it was like a container.
That's the famous stump.
That's a container, and there was a tiny little tree growing in there, very, very tiny. But I wanted to use the container for something. I just thought, okay, I'm gonna do a little piece here. So I took the tiny tree out just for a day or two, right, or a few days, and then I filled the container with these super red leaves. And so that was my first little piece I did at iPark. And so before I left, I planted the tree again. And then the tree came out one more time for a New Year's Eve event when I served a drink in the stump. So then it was kind of filled with cranberries and champagne, something. And then I put the tree back, and so it's been stunted growth twice, but it's doing fine. And it is the only. So what I do is I take things away. I don't really plant things, right? I only take things away. So I'm taking, in this immediate vicinity, I have taken away all the pines except for this one. So when you come in winter, you might just, all the trees will be bare, and there's this one lonely pine. So that's, I don't think have I told that story before? Oh, I have. Okay, you remember
Not
it.
to us.
Not to you. Okay, yeah. So that was the beginning, the rebirth of my creative juices after, I had gone through. But the walking, so the whole piece basically was generated by the land that healed me through walking. So, and I think everybody, to a certain extent, feels that when they walk my trail. There is some power on the land in general at iPark, but I hope it specifically comes through when you walk my trail.
Stop waiting for everyone.
Okay, so this, when I started investigating, right, and I walked in further, this was all, pretty densely wooded at the time, like brush, a lot of brush. And I came here and I saw the rim of something, because everything else was pretty much filled up with, branches and brush and all that. But there was there was something here that had happened. And then I cleaned it out a little bit, and I really saw how almost perfect this shape was. It's like a perfect bowl. So then the idea came of, clearing the bowl, and see what happens. There was also a huge gap. There was a gap here because the deer had used this as a trail to get the water. So I restored that a little bit, and I fenced it off a little bit, and then actually my ex-husband made the stairs down into the. And then I think the deer thought it's easier to take the stairs than to do this, because they never use this again. So, And then about at the time I was working here, there was an old. At the time I was working here, there was an old. I think it's I don't know where it's a juniper, but it's this one. The remnants are still here. Do you see this? It grew like a vine here, but it was pretty much almost dead and dying. But then I thought, okay, that's kind of my mom's tree, there's some life in the old dame yet. So I kind of took care of it, and then I found this little seedling that was growing. This is almost 20 years. It's grows very, very slow. And so this is why I wanted the tag that I wanted to make the other day. So this tree is called Maria, which is my mom, and then it will have a tag, or we'll have a little inscription here, 1917 to 2006. That's nobody knows that's here except you guys. Okay?
No, me. Was this from the quarry or was
Yeah, this is all from the quarry.
It's
Yeah.
not a turtle hole.
A what?
A turtle hole.
No. Well, some of it is glacier, right?
Yeah.
So I need to talk to some glacier specialists and see which is glacial and which is man-made, right?
Okay.
So this, when I got to this place, I saw, okay, now this is very different. You have this right angle, right? Obviously, and there were some kind of tire marks. So, figuring out this must have been the parking area for the tractors. And it was covered with these huge grasses, like they're really deep-rooted grasses. So I removed all the brush, the dead trees, the fallen trees, and I cut out all the grasses because they have real deep roots, and they're like this big, and you'll see some of them. And you'll see towards the end when they start regrowing. So I have to do that every year, because every year they just come up, and if I wait another year or two, it becomes harder to remove them. So I remove all the non-mossy stuff and everything that comes up, all the trees that come up except for these. And so you can see there's little ones. I found 3 more this year, this time that I was cleaning it up. So they don't all survive. Some do, some thrive, some don't. Those were very small. Like that one was pretty small, and that one, and they're now pretty much, right? They're past that initial stage, and they're becoming, pretty decent trees. So I don't know what this is gonna look like
So cool.
eventually, right? Is it a dense forest where you're gonna walk through the trees? So I probably won't be able to see that, but some of you may, right? In that younger generation, you may come back here someday and say, oh my God, if Mom could only see this, right? And that's kind of a nice thing. You leave something behind that's a little marking of the land that's, somebody's gonna wonder, why is this here? This is a lot of work. Some of my volunteers have worked on this patch. But if I keep it up on a yearly basis, it's not bad. It's just when you let it go a year, it becomes a lot of work. That's it. So let's move on. So originally the trail ran around the gravel pit, and then I did a land trade with Ralph to preserve some of the areas in the gravel pit. And then I ran the trail, I rerouted the trail inside the gravel pit. Again, you can see this is probably where that was shaped so that the water would run out of the gravel pit, I think. But it's definitely another, very, man-made or at least man-assisted sculptural garden, right? And
It's called the funnel, right?
The funnel, it's called the funnel, and it's supposed to kind of funnel you and suck you into the gravel pit. And that's also why I picked this time of the day, because this is just, amazingly beautiful. So just enjoy it, walk quietly, and then there's a little platform to overlook, and then you walk to the left onwards. So I'm gonna let you discover it. It's really interesting because the group stopped here, so they must have felt there was a place of rest, and so a lot of the trail is doing this, open, close, open, close. So it's like a form of breathing, and I think people kind of feel that when you come in this open space, and then you go back in, and you come out, and you go back in. So you pick that up, wanting to stop here, probably.
It was the stop sign we saw.
Okay, onward. Like when you make art, you do it and then you don't understand it until, you've done it basically. And then it starts to make sense and it starts to come together. So this is kind of like, it's not like I'm gonna do this, but this kind of happened. And then I started paying attention to it. And so what I do here, because otherwise this wouldn't stay open. So what I do here, I cut everything on the edge of the open field so that this will remain an intentional open space. If I wouldn't do that, it would all be, because the whole gravel pit was open, right?
Yep.
Right?
I remember that. Yep.
You remember that? And right?
Yeah.
One
When you
open-
started, it was like that?
No, it was already, because there had been, when was the flood?
Early 2000.
Probably just before I got here, I think. Or maybe it was just the year after, because the first time I found the gravel pit, it was really still a lot of gravel with just a little bit of brush. And so after the flood, the gravel pit flooded because of the levee got blocked, because the beavers blocked the levee, and then it overflowed in the gravel pit. So after that, there was this kind of burst of, new growth, and it grows so fast. And some things, the pines have taken off like crazy. Some of the, and it doesn't, also because it's wet. A lot of these birches don't live very long. They just fall over because of the poor soil and stuff.
So the
Yes, Julian.
What year did the property stop operating as a gravel operation? And
Your way slowly back to
The top.
Yeah, there's nothing. I'm not going to talk between here and the end of the trail, so just
okay.
And normally I do talk in there, but it felt appropriate not to say anything there and have you guys just be.
Thank you.
Now I may invite you for a sunset drink at the Pond Studio.